I'm Rick Conlow. Welcome to the Lost Art of Servant Leadership. Thank you for coming. Now, in this video training, I want you to find this lost art. Zero in on what I have to say and the examples and the information that I share. Because you know, there's two big payoffs. One, of course, is this: money. It's payoff for the organization and payoff for the leaders and managers in organization that become servant leaders. But it's also about this. It's about the heart. It's about purpose. It's about making a difference. It's about helping people succeed. Wow, what a way to live a career. So think about that as we go through this. Now, as you know, there's been what's called the Great Resignation happening throughout the whole world, really. In the U.S. alone, 40 million people stopped working during the pandemic. They just quit. They had enough. Wow. And it's certainly, maybe as a leader and a manager, you're going through that. It's hard to get people. It's hard to keep people. They're coming and going. The loyalty isn't there. And why is that? Why is that going on? Well, the pandemic did exacerbate this whole situation, but it didn't cause it. It accelerated it. There's some deep-seated problems that have been going on for decades in organizations. Toxic cultures for employees and managers, as well as 85% employee disengagement worldwide. In the U.S., it's about 70%. In either case, those are disastrous numbers, because if people are coming to work and they're not giving their best stuff because they don't like what's going on, it affects the productivity and the output and the performance of everyone. The other thing is lots of bad bosses. Some research says 80+% of managers aren't fit for their jobs. So the managers aren't trained well. So that's part of the problem as well. So along with that goes a lack of ethics and honor and character. And it's politics in business just like it's politics in the government. So there's selfishness, greed, power, fame, money. That's what people want. It isn't about the job. It isn't about doing a good job. It isn't about the team. It's more about those things I just mentioned. So people want high influence in big places as opposed to treating people right. See what I'm getting at? Does this sound familiar? And global competition, of course, is ruthless. And so everybody's ruthless. Stab them in the back. You know, it's like in politics, where instead of talking about the policies and what they're going to do to try to make things better, they try to beat down their opponent every chance they get. That's what seems to be going on. Also, another piece of it is businesses often cater to Wall Street. It's about what's that quarterly report looking like, so we're going to have a short-term focus, not a longer-term focus. And so, if you read the annual reports of businesses that they have online, public companies have to do this, you'll see that most of the time they talk about their procedures and their policies and their products, but they don't talk about people very much. That's an indication that people are lower on the rung of importance. So, there's a broken trust. All of this has caused that. No wonder in the pandemic, when the world was turned upside down, people wanted to leave in droves. And then they're coming back, and now they're not sure if they can have a workplace that would accommodate them, like some remote work is. So companies are really grappling with that, and there's layoffs and all these kinds of things. The economy's struggling a little bit, and people, again, aren't most important. They're less important. And quite frankly, in today's age, people have the power. Why? Because they have the knowledge. They come in there with the knowledge, whether it's tech or service or sales or whatever job it may be. They have the knowledge, and that knowledge bank is what makes a company perform better. And if the people who have that knowledge feel great about what they're doing, guess what? They're going to perform better. But we don't have that. It's broken trust. Now, there's two kinds of leadership today to be concerned about. There's the control and collaboration. The control is the traditional leadership that we've all seen. And it's about power. And it comes across negative. And it's about employees being subordinate, not a team, not partners. And so winning is about profit. And only a select few gain the most. Collaboration is the other approach. servant leadership, which is gaining influence because of all the stuff I just talked about. People want something different. They want something better. And servant leadership is about positive influence. It's about employees as partners. It's about a servant focus. Winning is about people. And when people win, the company wins. And everyone has an opportunity to gain from it. And this kind of leadership was emphasized by Robert Greenleaf back in the 70s and more recently Ken Blanchard in the 2000s. This is the kind of leadership we need to have. But as I said, it's lost. Now, of those two types of leadership, control, collaboration, which would you rather work with? A boss, which one would you rather have them as their approach? Or a company? You know, by the way, you can find what kind of focus company has. You go on Indeed, Glassdoor, you'll see employee ratings there. Or if you go on Comparly, you can find out their ENPS ratings and NPS ratings, and you'll find out what kind of culture those companies really have. But certainly, we'd want one that treats us with respect and dignity and care, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, this is the state of the art. One more thing on statistics. The state of the art on leadership today. 81% of employees would leave their job for a better offer. Of course, we've seen that with the Great Resignation. 82% of managers fail, according to Gallup studies. 85% of employees disengaged. I've commented on those. A couple of more. 80 to 95% of service quality problems are management related, not employee related. There's a big company in where I live in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and they came out with a new program and sent information to all the frequent flyers that were committed to your customer service and were training our employees on the front line. Well, I'm thinking to myself, it isn't the employees that have the biggest problem. It's the management who affects the employees, or the executives who affect the managers who affect the employees. That's where the change has to start in terms of their focus on business control or collaboration. Now, all of these statistics impact the world economy, and the world economy is over $85 trillion, but they affect it nearly 25%, $22 trillion impact of lost potential business or losses for those businesses because of what I've just described. There's a great opportunity here for any organization and for any leader or manager in an organization to be more effective and to show that there's a better way to lead. Now, you got to have a change in thinking. Here's a quick mathematical question for you. What is 1/2 of 8? Go ahead, take a minute. What'd you get? Well, certainly. Did you get 4? If you did, you're right. Congratulations. That is great. But there are other possibilities. Wouldn't you agree? Maybe you had something different. Maybe you had 2 times 2, or 4 minus 0, or 8 divided by 2, or 2 plus 2, or the square root of 16, or you used the figure and had an S, or a 0, or an M, or a W. You know what? What's that figure at the top there that I have? That big figure right above the yellow? What is that? It's a symbol for infinity. There's an infinite number of mathematical possibilities to this. And here's the thing. As a leader, as a manager, if we open ourselves up to the possibilities of what people can do, and people can accomplish incredible things. As a consulting organization, we go into a company working with the leadership, and they wanted to improve sales or customer service or quality, whatever it may be, or a combination of those. Usually it begins with the leadership and getting the leadership focused on how to work with their teams more effectively. They'd be working on these problems for 2, 3, 4 years in some cases and got nowhere to improve them. We come in as an organization, listen to people, ask people questions, talk to them, get into their environment, not in an office somewhere with big windows, and talk to them, get their ideas, provide some support, recognition, training, a plan that made sense at their level, and get them involved in what we're doing. And in 2, 3, 4 months, they have significant improvement in sales, in customer service, and in quality and employee engagement. Why? Because of what I just described. A change in thinking, knowing that there are greater possibilities. You don't force people to do things. You include them in making things better, and things can get better. People have incredible potential. So servant leadership today is wanted and needed. Employees want to be respected. They want to be valued. They want to learn and grow, and they want well-being at work and at home, kind of work-life balance, partnership. They want career development, a career that matters, to make a difference, some purpose. And this is what's coming out through the Great Resignation as you survey and listen to employees. You know what? Employees today want that, but it's no different than employees of days in other years. They wanted similar things, okay? They just weren't given them. Business was top-down, and there's still too many top-down organizations, and we need to break through that. That's what I'm talking about. The Great Resignation showed that we need great employee retention to have great performance. And great retention and great performance comes from a great culture, which means great leadership, focusing on the team, helping them succeed, giving them what they need and want to be superstars in terms of what they do. So, what are some things you can do to change? Well, here's this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King that gives us some clues. He says, "May I stress the need for courageous, intelligent, dedicated leadership. Leaders of sound integrity. Leaders not in love with publicity, but in love with justice. Leaders not in love with money, but in love with humanity. Leaders who can subject their particular egos," wouldn't that be nice, "to the greatness of the cause." Great words. And it sums up part of the focus on servant leadership. See, servant leadership is a philosophy and a set of practice that enriches the lives of individuals, builds better organizations, and ultimately creates a more just and caring world. That comes from Robert Greenleaf, who I mentioned earlier, one of the founders of servant leadership. Of course, servant leadership been around for 2,000 years. Jesus talked about it as he walked the earth. So we need to change. Now, do you have a pen or pencil handy? Because what happens with change? People resist change, right? They don't want it. And they're going to dig in terms of what they have. Particularly, we've seen this with executives. They're slower to change than the middle management or the employees. So what do people do? Take your pen or pencil. Just write your name like you normally do. Now, put that pen or pencil in your hand. I know this is a video training. Do it anyway. Just go for it. And then now write your name with that other hand. What do you notice? Well, if you're like most people, the first one looked better than the second one. Now let me ask you a question. If you no longer had your first hand to write your name, but all you had was your second hand, could you do it better? Certainly you could. Why? With practice, with persistence, with perseverance, you would get there. It would look better, okay? So with that kind of effort, this change, adjustment in values and behavior, you can be a servant leader that makes a huge impact on the people you work with. Now, there are 7 signature traits of servant leadership. This is a compilation of traits and the behaviors that I'll share in a moment of what I've learned from other servant leader teachers. So first, it begins with integrity. The first and only rule of servant leadership is not about you, it's about people. We do business with ethics, honor, and character. We start there. Then we have vision about where we're going, what this department, what this company is all about. And that turns into goals and plans. And then there's inspiration. We have some passion for what we're doing, in other words. Doesn't mean, great motivational speaking necessarily, but what it is about is how we engage people, the belief that we generate, the honesty, the genuineness that we bring to the party. And then there's competence. We all have to keep learning. Employees have to keep learning. Managers have to keep learning. Top 100 companies with great workplaces do over 100 hours of training per year per employee. Most managers get less than 8 hours a year. We have to be better than that. So competence. And then there's heart. That's really valuing people, not as a resource, not as an asset, but as human beings, as partners, not commodities, but people, real life people that have lives. They're not numbers in an HR computer system somewhere. It's about people that can make a difference, people we can get to know, people we can help succeed and reach their potential. That's heart. And then there's humility. A leader doesn't know it all. They make mistakes, so willing to admit those mistakes, willing to give the team credit for the successes. Then we lead by example. And how do we know we're leading by example? We do those other 6 items that I just mentioned. These are the values. That's a different set of values than the values that often we see at the executive level and managers who want to get ahead. And their values are power, fame, fortune, recognition, looking good, media attention, my pocketbook, not someone else's. What can I gain? Not what can I give. And this is about giving. Servant leadership is about giving first. It doesn't mean you don't want the things you want. You don't want the company to be profitable. It doesn't mean that. You certainly have to be profitable as a company. You certainly have personal goals and ambitions you want to do, but you start with people first. Give other people what they want, and they'll give what you want. Help other people be successful, and you'll be successful. Now, here are the behaviors that help us focus on servant leadership. And again, we may have to make some changes, small things done consistently in strategic places creates major impact. So I'm talking about a little impact. And we're not changing anything 100,000%. We're changing a number of things, 1%, 2%, 3%, and then they add up. So it starts with character. We lead by character. That's a leading by example. That's doing business honestly, ethically, genuinely, and we're not holding things back from people. We're being straight, and that builds that trust I talked about, rebuilds that trust that we need to have, and it's caring. I mean, you don't fake it to say, hey, Rick, I want you to succeed. You really mean it when you say, Rick, I want you to succeed. So when I do my meetings with the team, and one-on-one coachings with the team, I'm talking about their personal development, their career development, what their dreams are, what their fears are, what their needs are, what they want, what their emotional situations are. And when people have tough times, I'm a listener. I don't become a counselor, but I become a listener and willing to help and refer if you need some help. That's what caring is all about. That's what dealing with people is all about. You don't deal with assets that way. Assets, you go, well, this one's not working. Dump that. We'll take a loss. Let's get another. But with people, you do this. You have empathy, okay? And then there's communication. Communication is about collaboration. The number one negative feedback that comes up on employee engagement surveys is we don't communicate around here. So we got to have regular team meetings, positive team meetings, not beating people up. One manager said this to his team, hey, look, the numbers aren't where they're supposed to be. So from now on Saturday mornings, every Saturday until the numbers get better, we're going to get in a meeting and we're going to go through this. And what he did over 4 hours when he held those meetings is boom, boom, boom. He hammered the people. You think that motivated them? No, what they all started doing right away is went looking for another job. Wouldn't you? So we're collaborating, we're getting input, we're building people up. That's what communication is. And there's consistency. Anybody can talk a good game one day, but servant leaders walk the talk and talk the walk. So they really do it day in and day out. There's a certain level of diligence and resiliency. Certainly everybody has bad days. Servant leaders aren't perfect. They make mistakes. They do things wrong like anybody, but they're quick to admit it. They're quick to regroup, and they regroup with the team. And that's the consistency, day in and day out. Without consistency, you're not fooling anybody, and you won't get the results. It's got to be a commitment to a way of life as a leader, as a manager, as an executive. And then it's commitment. And one of the keys that demonstrate commitment is ongoing coaching the team. We believe that coaching is a secret sauce of leadership success because you get personal with people one-on-one in a meeting, and you're talking about what they're doing well and what they can improve. And you're working on their personal development and their performance at the same time and melding that together artistically, if you will. And so there's a process to doing that well and effectively. And that's what servant leaders, they do. They learn how to coach dynamically, persistently, amazingly to be effective. And so that's part of what I'm challenging you with to do. Now, critics say that servant leaders are weak and touchy-feely. It could be further from the truth because they don't understand it. Say servicing others, they think it's all about the team. Certainly it's all about the team to get their input and involvement and commitment and collaboration and ideas. And so when they come to work, they want to come to work. It's not because they have to come to work. Most people come to work to get a paycheck. But on a servant leader team, they come to work because they have a cause, a mission, a vision, a desire to do well for the purpose of the team. Big difference in terms of what happens. See, servant leaders have high standards. They set the goals higher. At the same time, because the trust they build up, because how they treat people with respect and dignity, they can hold people accountable. And then what often happens is that people hold themselves accountable when they come to talk and have a communication in the coaching sessions or meetings or other situations. See what I'm talking about here? Now, what does the research say about the results? What you'll see here is a graph, shows the Fortune 500, that's the lowest bar, the good to great companies by Jim Collins, the middle bar, and servant leader companies like Marriott, FedEx, the Container Company, and a few others. How did they perform? And what we found is that the servant leader companies outperformed even the good to great companies significantly. That's what you can look for. That's what is possible. So as I said earlier, the payoff is great. It's immense. So you got to study, you got to get into it. So I encourage you, read my book, 5 Dynamics of Servant Leadership. Read the other books out there by Greenleaf and Blanchard as well. Be a student in the game. And I think what you'll find is a change in yourself, a better perspective, a lessening of the stress, a desire to do more, to be more, to make a difference with the world, the job that you have. I have this dream that soars on golden wings. I visualize your achievements and your legacy that sings. I do not know all about your awesome goals or your persistent efforts to raise the bar. I only know you can be the best, a superstar, and that means a servant leader. Hey, if you like this, give us a thumbs up on the bottom, leave a comment, check out our resources. Thank you so much for coming, and I wish you the best of success.